Hare Krishna, good morning, bonjour. Is there cocktails? Anyway, I have hands. So, chant the devotional Bhadam Jai Radha Madhava. It's a pleasure receiving grace. And Shri Govinda Madhava. Jai Radha Madhava, Punjabi Hari. Radha Madhava, Punjabi Hari. Punjabi Hari. Jai Radha Madhava, Punjabi Jai Shri Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvajapacharya Askacharya, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya, His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Gora Premanandi Haribol. All glories, all glories, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Continuation from the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, the second chapter, Divinity and Divine Service, text 12. Word by word and translation. Tat, that. Shradadana, seriously inquisitive. Munaya, sage. Jnana, knowledge. Vairagya, detachment. Yuktaya, well equipped with. Pashanti, see. Atmani, within himself. Cha, and. Atmanam, the Paramatma. Bhaktya, in devotional service. Shruta, the Vedas. Grihitaya, well received. Tak Shadadananamunayo, Tak Shadanamunayo, Tak Shadanamunayo, Yanagiragya Yuktaya, Yanagiragya Yuktaya, Jnana Viragya Yuktaya, Pashanti Atmani Tatmanam, Pashanti Atmani Tatmanam, Pashanti Atmani Tatmanam, Bhaktya Sutta Grihitaya, Bhaktya Sutta Grihitaya, Bhaktya Sutta Grihitaya,
Tachstradadanamunayo, Jnana Vairagya Yuktaya, Shantyatmani Chatmanam, Bhaktya Sutta Grihitaya,
Takshradadanamunayo, Jnana Vairagya Yuktaya, Pashanti Atmani Chatmanam, Bhakta Shruta Grihitaya,
Tashvadadanamunayo, Shruta Grihitaya.
Bhaktya Shruta Grihitaya.
Ladies,
Tatra Dadana Munaya
Tachadana Munayo.
Jnana Vairagya Yuktaya
Jnana Vairagya Yuktaya.
Pasyanti Atmani Chatmanam
Pasyanti Atmani Chatmanam.
Bhaktya Shruta Grihitaya
Bhaktya Shruta Grihitaya.
ladies,
Tachadana Munayo. Jnana Vairagya Yuktaya. Pasyanti Atmani Chatmanam. Bhaktya Shruta Grihitaya.
the translation by His Divine Grace. By the way, Srila Prabhupada had given this class on this verse, I think it was in London. He gave it in 2 different places, maybe London or Vrindavan, one or the other. So he was having the chanting, and then he says, okay, girls. And then this one devotee lady, she chanted the verse, and Prabhupada said, oh, she is better than everyone. So, translation. The seriously inquisitive student or sage, well equipped with knowledge and detachment, realizes that absolute truth by rendering devotional service in terms of what he has heard from the Vedanta Shruti. Purport. The absolute truth is realized in full by the process of devotional service to the Lord Vasudeva, or the personality of Godhead, who is the full-fledged absolute truth. Brahman is his transcendental bodily effulgence, and Paramatma is his partial representation. As such, Brahman, or Paramatma, realization of the absolute truth is but a partial realization. There are 4 different types of human beings: the karmis, the jnanis, the yogis, and the devotees. The karmis are materialistic, whereas the other 3 are transcendental. The first class, transcendentalists, are the devotees who have realized the Supreme Person. The second class, transcendentalists, are those who have barely realized the spiritual focus of the Absolute Person. And the third class, transcendentalists, are those who have barely realized the spiritual focus of the Absolute Person. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literatures, the Supreme Person is realized by devotional service, but is backed by full knowledge and detachment from material association. We have already discussed that point, that devotional service is followed by knowledge and detachment from material association. As Brahman and Paramatma realization are imperfect realizations of the Absolute Truth, so the means of realizing Brahman and Paramatma, in other words, the path of Jnana and Yoga, are also imperfect means of realizing the Absolute Truth. Devotional service, which is based on the foreground of full knowledge combined with detachment from material association, and which is fixed by the oral reception of the Vedanta Shruti, is the only perfect method by which the seriously inquisitive student can realize the Absolute Truth. Devotional service is not, therefore, meant for the less intelligent class of transcendentalists. There are 3 classes of devotees, namely first, second, and third class. The third class devotees are the neophytes, who have no knowledge are not detached from material association, but who are simply attracted by the preliminary process of worshiping the deity in the temple are called material devotees. Material devotees are more attached to material benefit than transcendental profit. Therefore, one has to make definite progress from the position of material devotional service to the second-class devotional position. In the second-class position, the devotee can see 4 principles in the devotional line, namely, the personality of Godhead, his devotees, the ignorant, and the envious. One has to raise himself at least to the stage of second-class devotee and thus become eligible to know the absolute truth. The third-class devotee, therefore, has to receive the instructions of devotional service from the authoritative sources of Bhagavata. The number 1 Bhagavata is the established personality of God, of devotee, the established personality of devotee, in order to learn the instruction of devotional service. Such a personality of devotee is not a professional man who earns his livelihood by the business of Bhagavatam. Such a devotee must be representative of Sukadeva Goswami, like Sukadeva Goswami, and must preach the cult of devotional service for the all-around benefit of all people. A neophyte devotee has very little taste for hearing from the authorities. Such a neophyte devotee makes a show of hearing from the professional man to satisfy his senses. This sort of hearing and chanting has spoiled the whole thing. So one should be very careful about the faulty process. The holy messages of Godhead as inculcated in the Bhagavad Gita or in the Srimad Bhagavatam are undoubtedly transcendental subjects. But even though they are so, such transcendental matters are not to be received from a professional man who spoils them as the serpent spoils milk simply by the touch of his tongue. A sincere devotee must therefore be prepared to hear the Vedic literature like the Upanishads, Vedanta, and other literatures left by previous authorities or Goswamis for the benefit of his progress. Without hearing such literature, one cannot make actual progress. And without hearing and following the instructions, the show of devotional service becomes worthless and therefore a sort of disturbance in the path of devotional service. Unless, therefore, devotional service is established on the principles of Shruti, Smriti, Purana, or Pantaratra authorities, the make show of devotional service should at once be rejected. An unauthorized devotee should never be recognized as a pure devotee. By assimilation of such messages from the Vedic literature, one can see the all-pervading, localized aspect of the personality of Godhead within his own self constantly. This is called samadhi. So can repeat: the seriously inquisitive student or sage, well equipped with knowledge and detachment, realizes the absolute truth by rendering devotional service in terms of what he has heard from the Vedanta Shruti. Om Gyantamarandasya Ranana Sakalaya Chakshur Manitam Yena Tasmi Sri Gurave Namaha. And everybody can chant Srila Prabhupada's pranams. And then when we chant the 2 pranams, take a pause, because I also want to chant a very beautiful pranam that was written by Srila Prabhupada's request by Govinda Maharaj and edited by Sridhar Maharaj. And some of you may already know this. So first pranam. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanande Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Sunyavati Vasyatya Desasarine. So now this pronouns it begin almost sounding like what we know, but you'll see it starts to change. So I'll go, I will speak, and then you can say, Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prasaya Bhutale, Swami Shri Bhaktivedanta, Prabhupadaya Te Namaha, Guru Bhaknyam Sharashi Kritva, Saktivesha Swarupine, Hare Krishneti Mantrena, Taskacha Pratyatharane, Visvacharya Prabharyaya,
Vishwacharya Prabhavaya,
Divya Karuna Murtaye,
Divya Karuna Murtaye,
Shri Bhagavata Madhurya Gita,
Shri Bhagavata Madhurya Gita,
Jana Pradayine,
Yana Padayine,
Gora Sri Rupa Siddhanta,
Gora Shri Sasanta,
Saraswati Nishevane,
Saraswati Nishimne,
Radha Krishna Padam Boza,
Radha Krishna Padamoja,
Vringaya Gurave Namaha.
Vindaya Gurave Namaha.
And the very beautiful heart-rendering translation. I offer my humble obeisances unto His divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is Krishna's beloved associate and who came down to this plane from Goloka. Taking the order of his guru on his head, he is Shakti-Avesh, an empowered avatar of Nityananda Prabhu personified. He distributed the Hare Krishna mantra all over the eastern and western world, delivering and uplifting all fallen souls. He is the best of millions of Jagat Gurus because he is a personification of divine mercy. And I want to mention here that Srila Prabhupada didn't actually like this to be called Jagat Guru. He said there's so many Jagat Gurus, but here it's being distinguished. He's the best of millions of Jagat Gurus because it's a personification of divine mercy. He has distributed the sweet nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam and the transcendental knowledge of Bhagavad Gita all over the world. He is constantly engaged in exclusive devotional service to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, Srila Rupa Goswami, and Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu. I offer my humble obeisances unto Srila Prabhupada, who is like a bumblebee always tasting the nectar of the lotus feet of Sri Sri Radha and Govinda. My praise Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So I'm going to put the class into 3 parts, if I can get it in the time, because time kind of flies. But first part, some comment on the verse. Second part, just some remembrances of Srila Prabhupada's care and compassion. And third part, just a few words of Radharani, because of course, coming very quickly, Radhastami, so it's nice to kind of move into that mood. So Srila Prabhupada commentating on this verse is mentioning that there are qualifications on who can see God. And then the question, well, what are the qualifications? And that's answered actually within the verse. First of all, he is Shraddha Dana. He must be faithful and submissive. So the Shraddha, faithful. And Manayo means thoughtful. So Prabhupada explains we have to contemplate. And then, how to contemplate. And Prabhupada said, so how far have I understood? How far it is truth, and what is the difficulty? In so many things we must be thoughtful, munayo. And then what kind of munayo? So there are many so-called thoughtful thinkings about sense gratification, and that's not the munayo that we want to consider. Thinking sense gratification, how shall I go to the cinema, how shall I drink, etc., etc., what's on the internet? The Prabhupada says, but no. Actually, with this whole internet thing, of course it wasn't around in the time of Prabhupada. And sometimes people will rhetorically ask this question, well, what do you think Prabhupada would think or say about the internet? And of course, we can speculate, but not too much, because I remember when we got those electronic, what was it called?
Telex.
Huh?
Telex.
Telex, yeah. So, I was in Paris, and we had one of those things there. And then we got a message, and everybody was definitely fascinated, And we got a message by Prabhupada, cut it, stop it, finish, You'll simply become distracted. So yeah, I'll go to the internet. So this Jnana Vairagya Yuktaya, thoughtful with knowledge. And Vairagya, of course, detachment. So jnana means full knowledge, and without actual knowledge, what is the meaning of speculation? Like we have Jivasya Tattva Jigyasya, the inquisitive for understanding the absolute truth. But if one hasn't got any knowledge about the absolute truth, or even they're not even inquisitive, they're not even thinking about it, then Prabhupada asked, what will one speculate about? What's the point? So this Jnana Vairagya Yuktaya, there are qualifications. So one must be thoughtful, one must have knowledge, you must have detachment. So if one is materially attached, then naturally they will think and meditate only on material subject matter. Like the so-called modern meditators are so much material attacked that there's no meaning to their meditation because there's only thinking about things connected to material sense gratification. In other words, material energy. This Jnana Vairagya Yuktaya. But the point is that one must be detached from any material attachment. And that way one can actually see. One doesn't, Prabhupada said, one doesn't have to go anywhere. Atmani, within yourself, you will see. Cha, Atmanam. So the entire principle is Bhaktya Shruta Gihitaya. One must be a devotee. This jnana means devotional, and jnana that we're referring to, and jnana, not the dry speculative, where there's no advancement. Vedic knowledge. Not that I manufacture anything or something. And Prabhupada, he liked to use some spicy words sometimes, Like rascal was one of the fools, rascals, buddhas. And sometimes people get a little bit, disturbed by hearing things as they are, But that's what attracted us to Prabhupada, that he didn't mince words and he told things as they were. So he says, some rascal avatar comes and says, now I want to give up all these books and give up Vedic knowledge. So what's going on, Without Vedic knowledge, Shruta Brihattaya, so the Shruta means through the ear, you have to understand. And that type also gives you vision, So therefore Rupa Goswami says that one has to become a devotee. And without reference to the Vedic knowledge, it's simply a disturbance. I'm a devotee? What kind of devotee? No, I've become a devotee. Then you ask, well, have you read anything? Have you heard anything? No, I avoid all books. I've met these kind of people. I avoid all books, Such kind of devotion, Rupa Goswami says, utpat, simply creating a disturbance. So that's going on. At that time, Prabhupada was discussing at that time what to speak here and now. So many rascals manufacturing their own way of understanding without any reference to the authoritative Shastra, without reference to Vedic knowledge, without any Vairagya. So you can do anything, you can accept all kinds of sense gratification, simply meditate, But what kind of meditation? Prabhupada says, what kind of meditation he will do? No tapasya, no accepting any advanced authority. So these things are explained. Shruta Gitaya, Shruti, Shruta, the Vedas, and Shruta Gitaya. As soon as there is a question of Shruta Vedas, you must hear from the authoritative person. And one shouldn't even slightly endeavor. This is from, there's in Bhagavatam in 10th canto, 14th chapter, 3rd verses. It's explaining you in the purport. One should not even slightly endeavor to understand the absolute truth by the process of mental speculation, because it inevitably carries one to an imperfect, impersonal understanding of God. So the devotee who always hears about Lord Krishna will go back home, back to Godhead, even if he can't do anything except maintain his existence and hear topics concerning the Lord. So you can remain in your position, but simply try to hear from the authority. And then Prabhupada said everything will come out all right. And that is called Shruta Gihitaya. So, let's comments about the verse. And so there's some remembrances of Srila Prabhupada in terms of his loving compassion, his incredible compassion. You know, there's one story that maybe some of you know, that his servant, Shrutakirti. So you're the servant, the assistant, close assistant of the spiritual master. You're just like right there all the time. And whenever they would travel, he was noticing how the devotees were expressing so much love and so much affection for Srila Prabhupada. And he was feeling like he didn't have that. You know, he was doing his service okay, but he didn't feel that he was having the same emotional feelings of, you know, love and affection that he saw the others. So one day he took the opportunity to ask Prabhupada. He was asking, you know, all your disciples have so much love for you, it makes me feel bad. You know, I lack this intense love. And, you know, when I'm at the airport with you, I see everybody dancing and chanting and crying. I have so much association with you, but I don't get this overwhelming love like they do. So he was hoping Prabhupada would say something to relieve his mind, but Prabhupada remained silent. So then later, you know, massage was finished, he was massaging, took his bath, he chanted Gayatri, and then he called Shruta into his room. He goes, and he had a very serious look on his face. And he asked, so do you like serving me? And immediately, oh yes, Srila Prabhupada, I like serving you very much. And then Prabhupada responded, then that is love. Everyone can do so many things. Singing, dancing, jumping up and down with the speakers, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, you know. But you are actually doing something. Isn't this love? Just do your service. That's all that's necessary. That is what love means, to do some service. And they kind of, a quick cooking story. Like a devotee was asked to cook for Prabhupada at the last minute. Probably somebody was supposed to do it, couldn't do it, so last minute. And Prabhupada arrived late, and there wasn't much boba available. You know, we didn't keep refrigerators full of stuff. We didn't even have refrigerators. So, you know, did what could be done, and was looking for a sweet. There weren't any. But in the meantime, Prabhupada was honoring the sabji prasad, and there were puris. Now, generally, Srila Prabhupada would honor prasad alone. He didn't have spectators watching on him, breathing down his neck, and honor prasadam alone. But in this instant, there were two sannyasi disciples, and they had somehow been allowed to remain. So then Prabhupada requested 2 more puris, and Kirti went to the kitchen, he made 2 more puris, he rushed back, And Prabhupada, there's no sweet? And no, there wasn't any sweet because they hadn't made them yet. And Prabhupada responded, oh, all right, bring me some sugar. So, realizing this situation, he went to the kitchen and he filled up a little bowl with the dreaded white sugar. And he placed it on Srila Prabhupada's plate. Prabhupada folded his puri, and he was dipping it in the sugar, and it was like crunching sounds. He was very enthusiastically chewing on it. And then he paused for a moment, and he chanted, Luchi China Sara Puri Ladu Rasa Balai, from Srila Bhaktivinoda Bhogarti song, chini sugar, puri. And he comments, this is a very good combination. It's very tasty. And he was eating the sugar, the puris with the white sugar, and these two sannyasis were watching in total amazement, because neither one of them would eat anything that had a trace of sugar. But to speak of eating it in the impure form, like direct white sugar. So this was another one of Srila Prabhupada's really amazing qualities. He always knew exactly how to surprise his disciples, giving them an opportunity to understand his transcendental position. And Prabhupada would honor prasad. He gave his full attention to Krishna's mercy without the common distractions that many of us are now used to, watching the TV or videos or phones, driving, chatting while eating. Srila Prabhupada ate in silence and generally, as I said, eating alone. And he was relishing, he was meditating on the prasad. He honored it. He actually said we don't eat prasad. We honor prasad. It is prasad seva, So he told us as a grihasta, he would go to the temple. He'd give some donation for temple prasad. Not that we have our home. We may even have our deities in the temple. We cook. We offer. But temple prasad, there's some power in that. It's been under a very hopefully strictly prepared and offered to the presiding deity. So he would go, he would give a donation, and he would take temple prasad. And actually, it's a funny story. This was Mayapur 75, and in those days, going to Mongol Arti was like priority. And they would even have a Western devotee standing, taking attendance. This was mostly for the Gurukul or the devotees who were like, dormitories. So taking attendance. And quite often the devotees were really tired due to lack of sleep. But if you didn't go to Mongol Arti, you didn't get prasadam. That was the hardcore rule in those days. So this devotee was telling this story. He was like 9 years old. He was living in Mayapur Gurukul. And at that time it was about 15 boys. And 3 American boys had just joined up. They joined the Gurukul and they were sharing a room. So they came up with a plan. And he got the strongest of all the boys, who was like age 9. They came up with a plan. And they presented it to that boy who happened to be Dwarkadis. If you know anything about Prabhupada's pastime, Dwarkadis, Prabhupada was so affectionate with him, he called him Mr. DDD. And he was initiated and he had Gayatri by the time he was like 15 years old. So this time he was younger. And they came up with the plan and they presented it to Dwarkadis because they knew Prabhupada liked him. And the plan was that the 3 American boys would skip the Mongol Arti and they would sleep in to get extra rest. But to do that, they had to find a suitable place where they wouldn't be found. Because, they didn't just say, Prabhu, it's time for Mongol Arti. You would some big loud bang, 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 and maybe even a bucket of water if you didn't respond. I've heard that from more than one person. So they decided, okay, they're going to go to Radhamadava's garden. Nobody will think of checking there. So the plan worked, and they slept in their zipped up sleeping bags until 8 in the morning. And they got some really good sleep. So they got a shower, dressed in their dhotis, and then they went to Prabhupada, and he just finished Bhagavatam class. He was chanting japa outside of the 3rd floor of the Lotus building. And the 4 of them walked up to his room, right past the security guards with Dwarkadish right in the front. And they made obeisances, and then Dwarkadish told Srila Prabhupada the reason for their visit, and Prabhupada's eyes got really wide. So he goes, oh, no Mangalati, no Prasad, oh. So he looked really concerned, like a loving father, and he immediately called for one of the twin Pujari brothers, Johnny Boss, and he told them, go get these boys immediately, feed them immediately. So it's a direct order from Srila Prabhupada, and everybody ran to get them prasadam, and it was like puris, potato sabji, flat rice with vegetables, halva, mango sweets, and bale juice. Like if you were from the brahmachari ashram, but to speak of the Gurukul ashram, you could only imagine these things. So they were really fed sumptuously. And in remembrance of that moment, they were remembering how the love that they had got from Srila Prabhupada did not equal that even of their parents. And so after they finished eating, they thanked Srila Prabhupada, and they went on to attend their class one time. Srila Prabhupada's caring compassion. Another time during New Year, there was the inaugural New York Rath Yatra festival, and there were many devotees helping build that Rath car, including being directed by the incomparable Jayananda Prabhu. And they were living at the rail yards, in New York City, there's no place you can plop down and start building a Rath car, and they were building 3 of them. So there were on the outer skirt in Brooklyn, there was these railway yards. And there was an empty yard that they had gotten permission to construct. So in addition to building the carts, some of the devotees had to do nightly service to go out all over the city pasting up the flyers about the Rath Yatra festival. And they had to do it every single night because other people would come and put their posters over our posters. So they would keep on the forefront. They did it right at, in night, right before daylight. So one morning they got back to the temple and they're just covered to toe in this paste that they use, liquid paste. And they always wore really ratty looking clothes because they knew their clothes are going to be kind of messed up. So they walked in the temple lobby, and this was at the time when they had what Prabhupada called our skyscraper building on 55th Street. And right as they got into the temple lobby, the elevator door opens, and His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada walked out. So they were stunned, and considering how they looked, and made obeisances. And Prabhupada kind of looked at him with a puzzled look on his face because there was such a mess. And he just said, and he walks out, and their hearts were stopping. They're thinking, this is how Prabhupada has seen us. But then Prabhupada asked, who are they? And the devotees replied, Srila Prabhupada, they were out all night putting up the posters for the Rath Yatra festival. They just returned. And then Srila Prabhupada responded, tell them I said thank you very much. So Srila Prabhupada was always very grateful for any service, large or small, that was offered. And he said one time, only an animal is not grateful. Some of you may be familiar with this beautiful letter that Srila Prabhupada wrote to Jayananda Prabhu. Is there anybody here who doesn't know who Jayananda was? You don't know? Okay, well, we'll find out later. But, very, an extraordinary devotee, and he had left his body in 77 in May, just a few months before Srila Prabhupada left his body. So he'd already left the body, and Prabhupada writes, my dear Jayananda, please accept my blessings. I am feeling very intensely your separation. In 1967, you joined me in San Francisco. You were driving my car and chanting Hare Krishna. You were the first man to give me some contribution. It was like $5,000. I mean, that was like big and humongous in those days. He gave him $5,000. And Prabhupada didn't even want to accept it. He says, no, you may need. He goes, no, I wouldn't know what to do with it, but you would. And then Prabhupada accepted it. And you gave me some contribution for printing my Bhagavad Gita. After that, you rendered very favorable service to Krishna in many different ways. So I hope at the time of your death you will remember Krishna, and as such, you have been promoted to the eternal association of Krishna. If not, if you have any tinge of material desire, then you have gone to the celestial kingdom to live with the demigods for many thousands of years and enjoy the most opulent life of material existence. From there, you can promote yourself to the spiritual world. But even if one fails to promote himself to the spiritual world, at that time he comes down again to the surface of this globe and takes birth in a big family like yogis or brahmanas or an aristocratic family. But there is again a chance of reviving Krishna consciousness. But he ends it. As you are hearing Krishna Kirtan, I am sure you were directly promoted to Krishna Loka. And I want to tell a little addendum to that. So, 27 years after that departure, Jayananda's mother was in a hospice in Boulder, Colorado. And somehow or other devotees had lost track of her. But Krishna had never lost track of her. So, as it would be, there was a young devotee, newly initiated by Chandramauli Swami. She was a hospice nurse, and she was in that hospice where Jayananda's mother was, but not knowing it. So she used to go around. She had a little, she took with her some holy water in her pocket, some tulsi leaves, you never know what might happen. And it's hospice, so you knew it could happen. And she used to chant in the patient's ears if nobody was around. She would whisper the Maha Mantra. So there was this one old lady, and she just kind of seemed like, she didn't say anything, but there was some response, so she felt she appreciated it. So this particular day, she's walking out of her apartment to go to work. She's walking to the door, and she heard a voice, "Put on tilak." And she's like, "What?" And she lived alone, and she takes another step, "Put on tilak." And then she just found herself walking back. She goes into the bathroom because there's a mirror there. She starts to put on tilak, and she's thinking, "I'm going to go to work with tilak." She was even amazed it was happening herself. So she goes to work, and she's thinking, she always had a kuntimala on, but tilak, that's a bold statement. She says, "Let me see this old lady." And she opened the door, and her family was there. So in such a case, you can know there was an end in sight, like any moment. And that moment had arrived. They all looked at her. And then the daughter spoke. She goes, "Last night I was praying to my brother." Well, first she goes, "Are you one of them? Are you one of them? Because last night I was praying to my brother. He was one of them. I was praying to him for some direction, and now you're here." She saw the tilak. "We don't know what to do. Can you help us?" Even though she was just this young devotee, just initiated, barely initiated, but even a child will know something. So she said, "If you like, I can help you." And so she was able to put on some kuntimala on this lady. She had the some tilak on her. She was putting the holy water, tulsi on her mouth, you know. So you can see that it's really important that people know we're devotees. And one of the most obvious signs is, I could give a whole class on tilak. Serious, there's been some serious tilak interventions. But because of that, Jayananda's mother, 27 years after his departure, was remembered by Lord Krishna. And he sent this girl and made sure she had on tilak. So Prabhupada had this compassionate urgency to spread the holy name. And he said, we have to push Krishna consciousness with great difficulty. When I went to America, I went by ship. And when it stopped at the Commonwealth Pier in Boston, we'll be celebrating this in a couple of weeks. I'll be going there and having a big celebration. I was thinking, if I say no illicit sex, no meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling, these people will say, please go home, old man. Because these things are the daily affairs of the Western country. And if you want to make them stop these things, they will think, this man is a lunatic. So he expressed, this was during a conversation in '76, this movement is meant for these 4th class, 5th class, 10th class men. It's not that this movement is 4th or 5th class, but they are so fallen they cannot be counted even as 3rd or 4th class. They are 10th class men. Deliver them, Patita Pavana Hetu Tava Avatara. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's incarnation is for these classes of men. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu never meant for this movement, for the high-class Brahmin sages or saintly person. It was all for the fallen. In the conversation, in Kali Yuga, everyone is fallen. Don't be disappointed. Go on, go on. So, very good advice. Sometimes it may be we find some disappointment. Please know that is a gift from Maya. As Prabhupada says, go on, go on. And just a quick one. I don't know how time goes so fast. Suddenly it's over. But this is Srila Prabhupada. That Krishna, assuming the mood of Srimati Radharani, revealed the glory of Srimati Radharani. Krishna came, of course, Lord Chaitanya, with the mood and complexion of Srimati Radharani as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he revealed the identity of Sri Radharani. He revealed the highest aspects of Krishna's identity of Srimati Radharani. He revealed the highest aspects of Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan through his loving exchanges with Srimati Radharani. This is what Krishna consciousness means. This chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is actually indicating Srimati Radharani with Krishna. The Maha Mantra is the ultimate loving manifestation in Vrindavan. And these inconceivable pastimes of Krishna in the forest of Vrindavan are the ultimate spiritual exchange between the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his eternal consort. It is the highest aspect of spiritual dealings and the topmost activity in the spiritual sky. This is from Elevation to Krishna Consciousness, a little book. So Srimati Radharani Ki Jai's Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Slightly over, but not too bad. Breakfast was served 5 minutes ago.
No one wants to stop the class.
The what?
That's why no one is moving, because we all want to stay.
Oh,
Any
they're not
questions?
moving because they're asleep. Geez,
The show's not till 9 o'clock. The show's at 9 today.
Yeah.
Well, Prabhupada, from that same elevation of Krishna consciousness, he said, we should be more interested in worshiping Radharani, for however fallen we may be, if somehow or other we can please her, we can very easily attract Krishna. If we try to understand Krishna by the speculative process that was mentioned earlier, we will have to spend many lifetimes of speculation. But if we take to devotional service and just try to please Radharani, then Krishna can be very easily realized. Radharani is such a great devotee that she can deliver Krishna. So, and Prabhupada, like I told it I think yesterday, we were asking Prabhupada, who's Radharani? And Prabhupada looking at us, like 3 minutes ago we'd been raging hippies, so how to say it in a way we might grasp. He goes, Radharani is Krishna's girlfriend. But then he explained, that if you please her, she'll go to Krishna and she'll tug on his shirt sleeve and she'll say, look, take these people, take them. So even though we didn't have much comprehension of the exalted position of Radharani, still we understood, we have to please her. One god sister, Harsharani, she wrote this poem to Srila Prabhupada. And early on, Prabhupada had told everybody we should write about what you realize, but what can your realizations be at a point where you're, we weren't even Kanishta. I would say we were pre-Kanishta, like you have the preschool before you get, we were pre-Kanishta. But still he gave that order. And she wrote a poem, and it was, Dear Swamiji, I offer my respects unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, who is always herding cows in Goloka Vrindavan with his dearmost friend Krishna. Sometimes he's running barefoot through the forest chasing cows, and sometimes he's hiding behind a tree, waiting for Krishna to return with the spoils from Mother Yasoda's butter pots. I offer my respects unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, who is always thinking of what he can do in service of his dearmost friend Krishna, and never wanting anything in return. So, we shared things in those days, so, she read the poem, and some of the devotees were thinking, kind of childish, So it was taken to Srila Prabhupada, and his response was, printed in Back to Godhead. So then we were like, and then in rereading it years and years later, you're thinking, it was actually quite deep. Always thinking what he can do in the service of his dearmost friend Krishna, and never wanting anything in return. But the other part, herding the cows, running barefoot, chasing the cows sometimes. So we started wondering about Prabhupada, like maybe he was one of them, one of those cowherd boys. We didn't even know the word gopa, so we used the word cowboy, And we went up, there was about 3 or 4 of us, and we went up to his room. And we said, Swamiji, I was one of them, so this is first hand. Swamiji, are you a cowboy? And he said, yes. And at that point, we were just fully satisfied. Prabhupada had just revealed something to us, but it wasn't like we were looking for, like some great mystery. We were just curious. And when he said that, it was so wonderful. And we always saw him there among, you see the pictures where the cowherd boys are running, and we would always see Prabhupada in that picture, and one artist actually drew that picture, and she drew one cowherd boy to be Prabhupada, and she showed it to him. And he said, you know, like he didn't say no, he was, oh. And so we were always remembering Srila Prabhupada in that mood, the transcendental cowherd boy.
Thank you very much, Malati. In the beginning, you recited a beautiful Pranam to
Yes.
Srila Prabhupada, which Sravinda later on Maharaj had compiled. Do you know where the reference to that is?
I can get it, I do have it, but it was requested by Srila Prabhupada that he write. And he wanted it to be explicitly reflecting his mission, the mood of his mission. So you can see that happened. And it was edited by Srila Prabhupada's dear friend Sridhar Maharaj. But what's so remarkable about it is, you know, this is like coming from these exalted souls about Srila Prabhupada, you know, the best of millions of Jagat Gurus.
If we could get that, would be really appreciated.
I think you can find that, but I don't know if I have your WhatsApp, I can zip it, but it's easily found actually.
There was also, was it Shastriji? There was one devotee had written several prayers. We used to sing that before
Yes.
Guru Puja.
Yeah, I don't know if they still do, but at least up until recently they would do that in Philadelphia, sing those prayers. Yeah. There's some hidden gems in the transcendental forest of Vrindavan about Srila Prabhupada. You know, you dig around and they come up. And got 3 minutes so I can tell you something else. This is like, was in, I can find it.